Hi guys, so this is the next recording, which is about the next lesson, which is about forecasting. I've tackled this many times before, but this is now with regards to controllership and treasury management. So remember my um, what I said in the first one or the second lesson was that you need to be able to forecast the values of certain variables or factors that will lead to whatever you want to know, the value for. For example, if you are an HR guy and you are strategic, in nature, in your stance, and you are basing your uh, the number of people, the number of personnel to the sales, right? And there's, for example, a great one-to-one correspondence. You need to be able to project or forecast sales correctly in order to be able to project the number of people that you need, right? So that's with HR. Now, if you are an operations guy, of course, you need to have the raw materials cost, or the raw cost, or cost of the raw materials, raw mats. And this has also been loosely associated also with controllership in a way, treasury management, especially amongst companies that more or less are so concentrated with the treasury and controllership. Like for example, in my company, all the costing needs to go through finance, and it's not always final unless it goes through them. And so what happened is, well, through the years, I would say, um, people from the operations department would just rely on whatever the costing, that's being done by finance, right? Or treasury for that matter. But there's a flaw in that, since people from finance, to be really candid about it, is not always an expert in operations. I've said that repeatedly. And in order for you to correctly project or forecast the things that are supposed to be there, you should have an operations guy look at the assumptions, the many assumptions that are, part of the costing of finance. And almost always, the operations guy, and as I have said this repeatedly, the operations guy, the marketing guy, all the people that are supposed to help finance do the costing would just say, "Oh, I'm not good in accounting, I'm not good in finance, I'm not good in projection. Please do that. We will just wait for your costing." So that's really bad deal, because if that's the case, then we are operating in silos. We are not going to go very far if we behave that way. So it's always, especially if you're a manager, if you are part of management, if you're part of Mancom or Execom, you should know the many assumptions that are part, of finance. Almost always, if they don't know a great deal about, the operations, then they will create many assumptions that are sometimes a forecasting flaw or something. It will turn out to be a mistake, I should say. All right. So, for example, and we will erase this because we'll just focus on whatever we need to forecast. All right. So let's say that these are the numbers for sales, right? So this is in millions. Let's just put it in millions. or in thousands. Yeah, in thousands. Okay. Right. So we'll just create some random numbers here. We'll just create some random numbers. Okay. Just bear with me. So don't worry about it. As long as we already have the numbers, then we'll be able to. We need this. Okay. Just hide it. So this is the data for example. Now these are the sales in thousands for the years. Well, for each quarter. So quarter 1, 2015. Quarter 2 is this. Quarter 3. Alright, and so on. Now we are in quarter 1 only. Yeah, so we should have no numbers for this one. And we need to project what would happen in the next couple of quarters, right? Of course, this is not true because in 2020, we should have suffered a decline. Alright, so let's say that we suffered a decline. It's supposed to be here in first quarter, not so much, right? This one suffered a great deal in, yeah, so yeah, and then Q4, yeah, the third quarter, fourth quarter, yeah, almost okay, and then first quarter, yeah. So let's just say that these are the numbers of sales, and you have also correspondingly you have data for uh, uh, something else, right? So maybe cost of the goods that will be sold. Okay, it can be uh, marketing expense, for example, and you want to know what will be the next marketing expense. You want to project that, or OPEX, OPEX, past OPEX as percentage of sales, and there are many other things that you need to project, right? Number of people, of course, attached to that is the average salary, and then it increases every year, so to speak. And now hinge with the cost that's at hand. That's the something that you need to project. Like for example, the cost of goods or raw materials, or number of persons or number of employees, okay, or OPEX, or marketing expense. So these are certainly numbers that we should have in order to project what would be the needed numbers that will also be commensurable to the sales. So the idea is, if sales go down like this one, what happened in 2020 and 2021, we're not yet sure about it, depends on the projection, then we can already assign, for example, the number of employees. So cost of goods, this is a bit tricky because cost of goods is directly part or directly associated with the sales, right? It's usually a certain percentage of sales, unless it is some kind of perishable goods, like for example food, and then there's a sudden drop, like for example what happened in 2020, then you will suffer the profit margin there, right? So let's not assume that, and let's just focus on the number of employees. And let's say, for example, sales of 2 million, maybe around 100 employees, right? And usually it doesn't go up that high, right? And by December, they already employed 20 more. Okay, 120, and then they employed 150, right? 150, and now they're still increasing their sales, so they keep on increasing their employees. 160, 160, 160, 170. Yeah. Now they're hitting 4 million. Maybe they're still, uh, you know, uh, very optimistic that the sales was to continue to go up. 2019 it hit 5 million, so maybe they increased another 25 people, but then it suffered a decline. First of all, they don't know what to do. They still have the 225 with them for the first quarter, and now it stopped suddenly. It grinds into a halt, and they have only 2.3 million sales, but they cannot remove all the employees immediately. So maybe they were able to just remove 25 first, the first in, last in, first out, right? It increased in third quarter, but I'm sure by that time they already managed to remove some more employees. Okay, it's starting to pick up again, but they still managed to decrease the numbers, and now they're starting to pick up again. So 160. So maybe this is an example of a company that's going through the motion, right? And you want to know, like, for example, if you're the HR guy, so what would be the next? And I want to be, I should say, I want to be strategic about it, and I want to forecast the next couple of quarters so that I would know, how many people I should be hiring, or should I remove people in the process. So, what are the things that you can do in forecasting? Of course, if you want to forecast sales, then there are many ways to do it, and we will go to also to POMQM for that. There are many ways to do that, but you have to first find out what would be the relationship between the number of employees and the sales, right? So it could be like the sales per employee. Okay, that's a big thing among Chinese companies, the sales per employee, and it's something that usually HR people are trying to more or less justify their numbers. Okay, so sales, of course, the sales is in 1,000 divided by the number of employees. So per employee, that's the generated sales, and you will see that it's fluctuating, but then in 2020 it went down to 17, down to 11. Now it went up to 16,000 because we removed 50 people, and then went up to 18,000 because we removed 10 people and we improved the sales, and so on. So, for all purposes of a simple computation, if you don't want to forecast the sales, well, of course you do. You do want to forecast the sales, but at least if you don't want some massive calculation, then you can just simply say, okay, in the second quarter, this kind of a scenario, we have fluctuating sales here. Maybe you could say, okay, I think that the sales will hit 3 million when this is the time before the lockdown again, right? So we don't know that there's going to be a lockdown. So this is a forecasted sales. So this is 3 million forecast, right? There's no science yet. It's just a gut feel on the part of the salespeople, or it could be an analysis of the regions that they're operating in, or the area they're operating in. I cannot call it region because it's just 3 million sales is a small operation. So a forecast of 3 million, that's an additional 200,000. Of course, if you're going to forecast like this, then you are going to be bold, in your forecast. 3 million. All right. So if that is the case and you want to maintain more or less 17,213, you can just retain the numbers, and you'll see that the sales per employee improves to 18,000, but it's nowhere near your highs of 24,000 something. So that's how, for example, some controller, well, of course not all, right, but some of the operations guys would do it. Of course, the inputs would be have to pass on to controllership, to finance, and they will be the one to approve it. And then maybe they will say, "Oh no, you cannot just maintain 160 because inflation is cutting in on our profits, so we have to remove some more employees." And then they will say, how much would we be removing? And let's say you say maybe around 10%. So if that is the case, then you would go back to the operations, and HR would say, operations, okay, what would happen and how will you be affected if instead of 160, I'm going to remove 16 of those, and I will just retain 146 people, or 150 at least. Because that, in that kind of a scenario, then we are boosting our sales to employee back to 20,000, which is not yet 2020, not yet 2019, but almost there, right? And so the discussion continues, and it's not just about numbers. Of course, we need to understand, the way the operation would go, whether they are able to do it, and that's how it would be. So again, you don't need to do immediate forecasting of sales. The first thing that you need to do is find the relationship between two factors. So for example, sales and cost of goods. Sales and cost of goods, pretty straight away, maybe you will just compute for the profit margin, and then let's say, for example, I'm just giving an example, all right? So let's say historically this is goes something like this, okay, and then you will just have the relationship between cost of goods and sales, and this will be in percentage. So 41%, 49%. So maybe you would deduce that, okay, cost of goods is about less than 50%. So that is the case, then 50% cost of raw materials would be enough already for the operations. Remember that we're trying to forecast bottom line. We're trying to forecast how well, how better we can improve bottom line. Then maybe you can just look at the numbers. And of course, when you say, okay, 50%, that means 3,000 or 3 million, I will have to allocate 1.5 million. And controllership, finance, accounting will have to look at the bottom line. And for example, the bottom line shows that with that kind of a margin, we will not going to be able to sustain these numbers, for example, in that scenario. Then you will say, okay, we have to squeeze some more, right? Cost of goods should go back to like 40% maybe, and then you will have to remove 10% of that. And then HR would be told, okay, what is the scenario of removing 20% of the people? So that's how it goes. So again, it's not just it's not just dependent on the forecast of sales, although that's like the hinge where everything is based upon. And that is sadly going to be, such a problem when you are not forecasting correctly, right? So of course we are going through pandemic, and this is not really something that what I'm trying to say is that it's beyond forecasting. You know what I mean? You don't know what's going to happen next, whether the community quarantine will continue, whether normal means normal sales. You don't know that. And even if you go back to the prior to the March lockdown, prior to the first quarter lockdown of 4 million, That's a long shot already. That's, for example, in this scenario, that means you have to go increase 50% because you are only at 2.7 million and you need to go back to 4 million. That means you have to increase by 1.3 million, which is almost 50% of 2.7, right? So that's a long shot. So it's easy to go down and it's harder to go up because of percentages. All right. So yeah, so that's going to be the case. Now, if you want to forecast blindly, of course, if you use mathematics, statistics here, it's quite easy. There's always going to be a number that's the computers will give you. Just to give you an example, I'm going to copy it and put it in POM. Now we're going to do forecasting time series analysis. Number of past periods, I think we already have about, let's say, 25 or something. Yeah. So 2754, is that the last one? Yeah. Yeah. Imagine that we're quite on, you know, quite on spot. Okay, so we're going to copy that to POM. Okay, so we know that this is going to be 2015.1, 2015.2. Yeah, so I'm going to adjust first in our Excel. All right. So it has to be this one divided by 10. And plus A1 plus A2. Okay, A2 plus, yeah, so that's going to be the case. So 2015.1. We need numerical values in our forecasting so that it'll be easier to do. Okay. Alright, the pace fail. Be sure to click on the grid before you try to copy. Okay, so that's it, 2021.1. That means first quarter. Alright, so yeah. So there are many ways to do it. Naive method will just, these are the ways. Okay, naive, moving averages, weighting moving average, something like that. Now all you need to do is just solve it, right? Solve what would be the next value. In this case, the next value would be, what's the next value? The forecast would be 2754, and it's not really something scientific in the sense, because 2754 is merely just a repetition of the last value. All right, so that's naive. So naive means, we've gone through 2754, that's the last value, then why not predict 2754? So what you're going to look into this is the mean absolute percent error, okay, which is 8%, and then try to compare everything, using this number. So 8%, is that something good? I don't know. We don't know yet. So we use another method, moving average, and maybe we need to do 4-period average because there are 4 periods in a year, and then we solve. Okay, now this is a lot bigger. The forecast would be 2518, which is smaller than the previous one, but look at the error, 17%. So maybe not that one, right? But it's lower, definitely lower. What about lowering the moving average to 3, right? Let's see, 14%, still not as, not as good as the one that we use. Weighted moving average is even well, it's a different thing. We have here 4 periods maybe, and the idea here is weighted moving average means the the most recent period will have a bigger weight. So let's say the weight would be, for simplification, 4-3-2-1. So that means the most recent period is 4 times more likely to happen than the fourth most recent period. So again, this is just random. You can make it 3 and this is 2.2, or this is 1.5, or this is 1. Okay, that can be that could be the case, or maybe 3, 2.8, right? 2.5, 2.5. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, 2.5 and then 2.3. Yeah. So if that's the case, then whatever you put here, the computer, well, the software will simplify this to whole numbers. Yeah, so that is the case. Error measure, yeah, so negative 26 is the mean error, and you have an error of 16%, but the next period would be 25, 35, so very close to what we have in the beginning, in the previous one, but still not as, as good as naive method. So if you notice, naive method is even the best scenario to do. Linear trend, some of the things here may not be appropriate, like exponential smoothing. It's not exponential, maybe, it's not exponential. Usually is on a multiplicative projection, and this is not the case here. Linear trend line, maybe. Linear regression, least squares, yeah, so this can be the case. X value for forecast, X value for forecast 0 for, no, that's not the one. Not linear trend model, yes. Linear trend line, you will just solve it. By the way, this is not demand, this is sales, right? So so it's easy to do anyway. You'll just type over it, and then when you solve, then you have already the forecast. So this is the favorite forecasting tool of a lot of people. But if you notice, the mean absolute percent error is 19%. It's even bigger than the error in moving average. But you know why people like this is because we have forecast for the future period. Future period is 3914, 3945, 4007, 4030. So that means all these numbers will now be copied, selected cells, and then you can go to your Excel and just paste them there, right? See, so you see that the forecast is 3,914, which is a lot, which is yeah, very high compared to the previous quarter. You can just fool yourself over this, but it's not going to work. I mean, mathematically, it's a number, it's a forecast, but it doesn't hold. It's not so realistic. Imagine increasing by 1.2 million sales, and it's still, we're not yet out of the pandemic. 3.9 is like, what's the level? This is about 2018 levels. Well, of course, maybe some people would believe this, and that's why some people would just accept that as reality. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the good thing about that. And you also have the regression line. What is the regression line? Sales is equal to 3106.66 plus 31.057 times time. Time is the future period, so 28 is the next period, 29, 30, and you can even project it long term, like multiply it by 100, which is about, if the last number here is 39 or 40, that's about 60 quarters to go, right? So you can project it to infinity, really, and then what you do here is to adjust it as time goes by. So that's a way of doing it. Okay, what are the other things that are here? This is the graph, right? So this is the graph. You will see that there's a huge drop in 2020. It's now moving up, but the forecast remains to be linear, right? Linear. Now, if it starts to go up, you will see that the forecast, the linear regression will have to go up, and the slope will start to move up. So yeah, so that's the case in the time series analysis. All right. So yeah, so that's how to go about some forecasting tools. It's very simple. It's not rocket science, I should say. All you need to do is your good old Excel. And by the way, you can even do it without POM. If you need to forecast, but first of all, you have to have a reference. Yeah. So the reference is usually the number, right? The quarter, the reference of the quarter. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So remember, I'm not using Excel, okay? So you have to forgive me. This is WPS, free. Yeah. So this is the reference, okay? Reference of the quarter. And if you have all this given, this is your given, okay? And starting here, this is the forecast, right? And okay. So in order to find out the forecast, I'm going to insert a column, okay? So this is my forecast. Forecast using linear regression. Okay, linear regression. Of course, you cannot forecast using you don't need to forecast data that's already done. Okay, so we're already finished with this, and this is the start of our forecast. So what do we need to do? Just type in forecast, and then just follow the formula here. Forecast X. X is time. So forecast 26, forecast X. Known Y. Known Y would be this one. Known Y are the sales. Known Y are the sales. Don't include, the forecast. Known X. Known X would be the reference. We're not using the year because, yeah, it's not good. See, if you notice, it's the same. And if you copy it going down, no, because we have to put sorry, we have to put dollar signs here. What does the dollar sign do? It somehow if you will notice, the given does not change, because what I did a while ago is to simply copy. Without the dollar sign, the given will have to move down, right? And it's not supposed to be the case, because 3914 is not part of the given. It's a forecast, so you have to freeze the given, which are the given X and the given Y, by using the dollar signs there. That's basic Excel. And if you will notice, our projection, our forecast is the same as the forecast of is that the POM. Okay. So if we continue this, you will see that it will still be the same. Alright, So that's how to use your forecasting. Remember, what we first did is, of course, we need to have all the data, and you have to make sense using relationships between two columns or two variables. Relationship between sales and cost, relationship between sales and employees, or sales and OPEX, or sometimes the sales is related, highly correlated with, for example, the cost of goods, right? And on the other hand, cost of goods may be highly correlated with something else, like maybe inflation, right? And inflation and GDP may be correlated also in a way. Business confidence is also part of that, and employees can also be correlated to the sales, right? So those are things that you have to consider as a controller. You have to understand the relationship of the variables, and you have to understand uh, where are these numbers coming from. So as a management practitioner, you will not be able to do this on your own. Of course, you need the cooperation of your team. You need to plan ahead. You should know that the data, the numbers that are given to you are not just plain numbers. These are realities of the company, and you need to understand where they're coming from in order to make your projections better. All right, that's it for now. Thank you for listening. See you next time.